So now we're finally going to start Unit 3. We're going to be talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. One of the things we're going to learn about is ATP. So cell energy. So of course, energy is essential to life. So just as cells, every living thing needed it, all living things need to be able to produce energy. Your body uses energy to breathe, to make your eyelids blink. Voluntarily, involuntarily, energy is needed from the environment. We need to store energy. We need it for future use. And basically, energy is needed for active transport. We haven't talked about cell division yet, but this is how we make multiple cells. But the movement of cilia and flagella, so that's the movement of cells, and production of proteins, which is protein synthesis. So remember, our carbohydrates and lipids, which are the macromolecules, those were energy sources for us. Now, energy comes from food indirectly. Okay, so carbohydrates give us what? Do you remember? Quick energy. We actually call quick energy the kinetic energy. Remember, lipids, they do what to our energy? They store our energy, and we know that as potential energy. Now remember, I told you all cells have to move throughout your body, right? And for something to move, everything is requiring energy. So all cells use energy carried by ATP. Well, Miss Chi, what is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. You have to understand and know that name, okay? And it basically, again, transfer energy from breakdown of food. ATP carries energy cells can use for building molecules, moving materials, active transport. That's something that we just learned about. Um, so energy, what was the cell organelle? Was the powerhouse of the cell that gave us energy? The mitochondria powerhouse, right? So the powerhouse of the cell, it is transferred from food in the mitochondria of the cells. So the energy is stored in chemical bonds. So the bonds store your energy. Okay? And so the ATP molecule can be used quickly and easily by just breaking the bonds. Now, let's, for instance, how do you release energy? People go, what, shoot clay pots to release energy. People fight to release energy. Some people get mad and they start breaking things. So, breaking releases. So, the number of ATP, though, does depend on the type of molecule breaking down. A piece of chicken ain't gonna give me as it may not give me what I need from a little Debbie cake. So carbohydrates, you have to understand, is the most commonly broke down ATP. It gives us 36 molecules of ATP. 36 molecules. We also have carbohydrates. Carbohydrates give us 36. Fats store about 80% of our body. 80%. So if carbs gives 36 to about 38, it can go about 38, 32 to 38. A typical triglyceride, remember triglyceride is a lipid. It gives you 146 molecules of ATP. Why? Because it's stored. Now proteins has just about the same as ATP in carbohydrates. This is less likely to be broken down though, right? Because proteins build our muscles, so it's not really giving us anything else. And proteins are built up from amino acids, so amino acids need to build new protein. So that's kind of where the energy's at. But so, how do we break down ATP? Like, how does it really break down? How does the energy release and give us from those bonds? Well, ATP, adenine triphosphate. Phosphate groups are charged. Okay, when something is charged, I think of energy. If your phone is dead, it has no energy because you did not charge it. But once you charge your phone, you have energy. So that would be our phosphates are charged molecules. They are polar charged head of the phospholipid bilayer. Y'all remember what that is? That's the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane, remember, had the heads and the tails. This makes, again, the outer ring. This is our cell membrane. And remember, the heads like water. The tails do not like water. So it's a two-layered. So they are hydrophilic, which means the heads like water. So let's see how we can make ATP. Well, the first type of energy we have to learn is adenosine monophosphate. This is also known as AMP. You ever heard of the energy drink Mountain Dew AMP? They don't pretty much sell it no more. It used to be $1 because it didn't really give you no energy. It was the cheapest one on the market. This is when only one phosphate is attached. Only a small amount of energy, small amount now, and the chemical bonds do not store much energy. Now, inside of your notes, I want you to draw this. This right here is a AMP molecule. We have adenine, we have ribose sugar, and we have one phosphate. Well, still, how do we get the ATP? That was triphosphate. We on monophosphate, so mono means one. So now we on ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. Remember, di means two. So this is now when the second phosphate of the group is added to AMP. So now we say we add an extra P. This is why it makes it diphosphate. This is more energy, way more than AMP, and it's the force of two phosphates. Now we actually have a bigger bond, and the more bonds are broken, the more energy we have. So we start off with a AMP molecule, which again has adenine, ribose, and how many phosphates? Two phosphates. So now, if adenine triphosphate is after di, tri means 3. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate. This is when the third phosphate group is added. This is when we get all that energy, the tremendous amount of energy here. Why? Is because we have two big bonds of the phosphates. And that, remember, when the bonds break, we get a huge thing of energy. So, of course, we start back off with the AMP molecule, which again is the adenine, ribose sugar, and how many phosphates? 3. So that's why it's called ATP. So that third phosphate is so eager to get away. It was ready to leave. Okay, it likes to break up and get with somebody else. And so when it gets away from the other two and it breaks, a huge amount of energy, as you see here, huge, is released. And then ADP is made, right? But when that energy is released, it's now available for the cell to use. So the cell will use it. Basically, the cell will use it like this. It's an ADP molecule floating around, finding another phosphate. So ADP turns back into ATP because it goes with that floating phosphate that just flew off, right? So this process is a cycle. It's continuous. It's renewable. It never stops. So ATP keeps forming. So as one phosphate drops, it go finds an ADP molecule floating around in the body to connect to, and such, and keeps on going from there. And so the source from ATP being formed and then broken down. As long as the phosphate molecules are available, we will always have an unlimited supply of energy. So as long as we got the phosphate, unlimited. Inside of your notes, I need you to draw this picture to understand the ATP cycle of how energy is renewed. Please draw this picture inside of your notes. Yeah, battery. So let's recall and recap. How do cells tap into the stored energy stored in ATP? Well, proteins again have specific sites where ATP can bind. The phosphate bond is broken and releases what? Remember, if the bond is broken, it releases, yes, energy. We need it for making proteins. We need it for active transport. We need it for cell division and movement of the cells, such as with the cilia or flagella. Now let's give you an analogy. Dead battery versus a charged battery. What do you want? So when your battery in your phone dies, it just needs to be charged, right? And what do? You plug into the charger and you plug it into the wall, right? You plug your phone up into that. When you plug your phone up, we begin to do what? Add energy. When it's fully charged, you unplug it, right? But as soon as you unplug it, you begin to lose energy and it turns into ADP. And ADP eventually becomes your dead battery and is released from the binding site. And then the binding site then has to get filled. So all of a sudden, when you see your battery get low, you see this right here? What do y'all do? You charge it up. So once your body sees that this is low, it says, let's charge it up. We got to connect to a phosphate. And once we connect, we now are ATP. And so at the bottom of your notes, I want you to draw this actual chemical diagram of ATP molecule.